I found out about my wife Amanda's affair when I got a call from the police, asking questions about her coworker. I am still in shock. I honestly do not know what I am doing or if I should even be posting this here. My mind is completely scrambled, and I need someone to help me figure out what to do. Amanda and I have been married for 12 years. We have a wonderful 11-year-old son, Ethan. Up until yesterday, I thought we had a great marriage. I truly believed I had been a good husband to her. We never fought over money, our intimacy was solid, and I never took her for granted. Every single morning, I woke up thanking God for Amanda and our family. But now, all of that feels like a lie. It all started when I got off work and received a call from the local police department. They asked me to come down to the station immediately. Naturally, I panicked and asked if something had happened to Amanda or Ethan, but they told me not to worry, just to get there as soon as possible. When I arrived, they led me into a small room with just a table and a couple of chairs. After confirming my name, they began asking me strange questions about a man Amanda worked with. I had not spoken to or seen this guy since December 2019, back when Amanda's company hosted their Christmas party. The officers kept pushing, asking things like, "How long have you known, and when did you find out?" I was completely confused and just kept repeating, "What are you talking about?" After about an hour of this back and forth, I stopped trying to answer them and instead demanded to know where Amanda and Ethan were and if they were safe. They ignored my questions and kept circling back to the same nonsense. The whole process dragged on for almost 2 hours, with the officers leaving the room for 15 to 20 minutes at a time before coming back to grill me like it was some cheap TV drama. Finally, one of the officers came back in, handed me a tablet, and pressed play on a video. It was Amanda. She was in bed with the man from her work, and they were, well, you can guess. I do not even remember much of what happened next. I just remember screaming, "What the hell is this?" over and over again. I completely broke down in that room. I must have been loud because the officers called in a paramedic to check me out. My blood pressure was sky high, something like 170 over 110. The paramedic wanted to take me to the hospital, but I refused. I had to find Amanda and Ethan. After I calmed down, the officers finally gave me more details. They told me that Amanda's coworker, the guy in the video, had been having affairs with multiple women. That morning, someone found him beaten, assaulted, and set on fire in his driveway. He was still alive but barely hanging on, and no one knew if he would make it. His wife had handed over his phone and computer to the police, and that is where they found the video of Amanda. They asked me where I had been that morning. I told them the truth. I went to the gym and then straight to work. They suggested I should not stay at my house because Amanda's connection to the guy might put her, Ethan, and even me in danger. They also mentioned she was not the only woman he had been sleeping with. At that point, I rushed home. Ethan had been staying at the neighbor's house, so I picked him up and went home to grab some clothes and his laptop for school. I also took my gun, just in case. We drove to my parents' house, which is about 45 minutes away. I have tried calling Amanda multiple times, but her phone keeps going straight to voicemail. One of the officers I spoke with said she was at the hospital with the man she had been cheating with. Now, I am sitting in bed with Ethan on one side and my revolver on the other. My dad is in the living room, asleep in his chair with a shotgun across his lap. I have not slept in over 30 hours. I do not even know where to begin. If anyone has advice or ideas, I could really use them. I feel like I am drowning in this fog. Edit, I just got off the phone with Amanda's parents. They told me she checked herself into a psychiatric hospital earlier today. After I woke up that afternoon, I reached out to my uncle's law partner, Tom, who is also a longtime family friend. Tom wasted no time. He came straight to my parents' house and sat down with me to map out a plan. By the end of the day, his entire firm was backing me, handling everything from the divorce to any criminal defense I might need. That same Sunday, Tom filed for an emergency custody order and a protective order for me, my son Danny, and my parents. The first court date is set for 60 days from now. The following day, the police served Sarah, my wife, as she was being discharged from the psychiatric hospital. Her brother Mike, who has always been a good friend to me, told me she did not take it well. She is currently staying with her parents. I have not spoken to her, and she has made no attempt to reach out to me either. Whether that is because of guilt, shame, or simply because of the court order, I do not know. Frankly, I am just glad she is staying away. She is not the woman I thought she was, and I feel like a fool for not realizing it sooner. At some point, I had to explain what was happening to Danny. I kept it as simple and age-appropriate as I could. As soon as I began, his first words were, "Please do not let mommy take me away." That absolutely broke me. I asked him why he thought she would, and what he told me crushed my soul. He said Sarah had been treating him horribly when I was not around. She told him if he ever told me about it, she would take him away, and he would never see me again. She had been emotionally abusing our son right under my nose, and I never saw it. That realization hit me harder than anything else. I shared this with Tom, and he used Danny's statement, combined with Sarah's psychiatric commitment, to secure emergency custody. I also reached out to Danny's school to set up therapy for him. He will start seeing a counselor after the new year. I feel like a failure as a father. How could I have missed this? How did I let it get this far? On Tuesday, Sarah's parents called and asked if they could visit us. I was still staying with my folks, and I agreed, but I told them Sarah was not allowed anywhere near us. They completely understood. When they came over, they were apologetic beyond words. Her mom cried the entire time, and her dad, looking completely devastated, kept referring to her as that woman instead of using her name. They told me they had sensed something was wrong with her for a while but did not know what. They said, "This is not the girl we raised." Before they left, I reassured them they would always be part of Danny's life, no matter what happened with the divorce. Honestly, hearing from Danny and then seeing their heartbreak made this one of the hardest parts of the entire ordeal. Tom's law firm has been incredible. They dug into the guy Sarah was involved with and found that he has an extensive criminal record. One of Tom's associates told me they printed his arrest record, and the printer ran for 5 minutes straight. Apparently, this guy is currently on parole for serious crimes and has connections to gangs. He is still alive but remains in critical condition, and it is unclear whether he will pull through. Tom also has an investigator who reached out to one of Sarah's co-workers, the one who drove her to the hospital. This co-worker revealed that Sarah's affair was not exactly a secret at work, it was an open secret, as they put it. Tom thinks that is how the police connected the dots so quickly and figured out who I was. Apparently, there are photos from last year's office Christmas party where Sarah and I were both present, which may have helped the investigation. That brings me to where I am now, feeling completely lost. I am still in a fog, going through the motions but not really present. Everything that has happened feels surreal, like it is happening to someone else. How long does this numbness last? Is there any way to get through this haze faster? Update: Danny is doing so much better. He started therapy during the first week of January, and the improvement is already noticeable. He even said he was okay with me speaking to his therapist, so I have had a few conversations with her. She explained that Sarah would verbally and emotionally mistreat him when they were alone. She would leave him alone for hours, sometimes overnight if I was out of town. Danny was told he could not make any noise or bother her. On top of that, she would threaten to take him away from me if he ever spoke up. The therapist said this has left him feeling powerless and dependent, when he should be building confidence and independence at his age. To help him regain his self-reliance, I bought him a phone and taught him how to memorize important family phone numbers and addresses. We have been practicing situational awareness, learning how to spot landmarks, recognize street names, and read building addresses. We have also been role-playing scenarios, teaching him how to ask strangers for help and explain if he ever feels unsafe. Danny is naturally a quiet and shy kid, but I can already see these lessons boosting his confidence. If anyone has advice on how to keep building his independence, I am all ears. His safety and well-being are my top priorities. As for myself, I am doing about as well as anyone could expect under these circumstances. I started seeing a therapist around the same time Danny did. While I do not meet with my therapist as often as Danny does with his, it has been a tremendous help to have someone to talk to about everything that has happened. At first, I felt completely numb, like I was floating through a nightmare I could not wake up from. That numbness is gone now, but what replaced it is just as difficult to deal with, a fiery anger that sits in my stomach like a rock every time I think about Sarah and what she has done to our family. I hate being angry, but strangely, it is easier to handle than the emptiness. My therapist says this is all part of the grieving process. What matters, she told me, is not how I feel but how I channel those emotions moving forward. The legal side of things has been terrifying, to say the least. My lawyer, Tom, managed to secure temporary full custody of Danny for me, along with child support. I did not want to ask for child support, but Tom insisted. We also got the protective order extended to cover both me and Danny. At the hearing to request these orders, Sarah and her lawyer did not even bother to show up. The judge asked if I would consider allowing supervised visitation for Sarah, but when Danny flat out refused, my lawyer suggested I let Danny speak directly to the judge. The judge agreed and took Danny into chambers, along with a court stenographer and a child welfare officer. They spoke for about 10 minutes. When they returned, the judge granted the temporary custody and protection orders. He also mandated that Danny continue with therapy and undergo a psychological evaluation. Fortunately, Danny's current therapist is court accredited, so he does not have to see someone new for the evaluation. Tom says this is a big advantage since his therapist can also submit a formal custody recommendation. Even so, the idea that Sarah could get any form of custody after everything she has done terrifies me. As for Sarah's lover, I do not know much about his current condition. From what Tom's team has found out, he is still alive but remains in critical condition at the hospital. The police have not contacted me since the initial questioning, so I have no updates on their investigation. I had not seen Sarah since the day I was questioned until this past Thursday. She has tried calling me a few times, but I have ignored every call. When she called from an unfamiliar number, I hung up as soon as I realized it was her. I have no interest in what she has to say. Her lawyer requested a preliminary hearing for mediation, which was scheduled for last week. Sarah showed up to the mediation with her lawyer, and I know this might sound cruel, but she looked awful. Sarah used to be so full of life, fit, glowing, and beautiful. When I look at our wedding photos, she looks like a supermodel. But now, she has lost so much weight that she looks sickly and frail. Even with a mask on, she looked completely drained. She would not even look at me during the meeting, keeping her head down most of the time. Their demands were absolutely absurd. They wanted Sarah to have visitation rights during the divorce proceedings and joint custody afterward. They also asked me to drop the protective orders. But the most insulting request of all was that Sarah wanted to move back into the house with me until the divorce was finalized. Can you believe that? After everything she has done, she thinks we can still live under the same roof. It was so outrageous that my head pounded through the entire meeting. All of that frustration melted away, though, when Tom hit them with the big reveal. Sarah's lawyer brought up how we should divide the assets, to which Tom gave a stunned look and said, "What division of assets? Did you even read the prenup?" The look on her lawyer's face was priceless. Apparently, Sarah had not told him about the prenuptial agreement. My late uncle, who was the founding partner of Tom's firm, wrote the prenup himself. He even hired a separate lawyer for Sarah before our wedding to make sure she understood it and agreed to its terms. According to Tom, the prenup is virtually impossible to challenge in court. Following my uncle's advice, Sarah and I never mixed our finances. For instance, the house we live in was a gift to me from my uncle before we got married, and everything, utilities, insurance, and title, is in my name. The cars are individually registered, and we never co-signed for any debt. The only shared financial account we had was a savings account meant for household expenses and emergencies. That account originally had about $8,000 in it, but Sarah drained nearly all of it. There is less than $300 left now. The prenup specifies that all marital assets and debts are to be divided equally. However, personal assets and debts remain with the individual. Most importantly, the adultery clause states that if either party commits or admits to adultery, they forfeit any right to spousal support. Tom says the prenup is one of the fairest he has ever seen, and Sarah's chances of breaking it are practically non-existent. At the end of the meeting, though, Sarah's lawyer made one last request that threw me off. He asked if we could postpone mediation for 6 months so Sarah could attend an inpatient rehabilitation program for substance abuse. I will admit, some people in the comments of my earlier posts suggested Sarah might have an addiction problem, but I had dismissed the idea. Now, I am not so sure. Tom told me we would discuss the request and decide how to respond later. Before we left the mediation, Sarah spoke for the first time. She asked me if I would read a letter she had written. I looked over at Tom, my lawyer, and he gave me a warning glance, the kind of look that says, "This could be a trap, so tread carefully." I hesitated for a moment but eventually decided to take the letter. When I got home later that day, I opened it and read it. Now, I wish I had not. It was full of all the cliches you hear from someone trying to patch things up after betrayal. I love you, I love our family, I know I hurt our son, and I hate myself for it, I want us to be together again. Then, she explained what led to her actions. According to Sarah, everything started after she had major surgery about 2 years ago. She began abusing the pain medication she was prescribed. Over time, when her prescriptions ran out, she started buying pills from people at work. One of those people was the man she had the affair with. He became her go-to supplier, and when she ran out of money, she turned to sleeping with him to pay for her fix. She claimed the relationship with him was meaningless, that he was nothing more than a way to get what she needed. She wrote that she had kept it hidden from me because she was afraid I would try to stop her, and by then, she felt like she could not function without the pills. She said she hated herself for what she had done to herself, to me, and to our family. She ended the letter by asking for time to prove that she was serious about getting better and that she still wanted to rebuild what we had. Let me be clear, I will never reconcile with Sarah. The moment she cheated on me and hurt our son, our marriage was over. That being said, I cannot help but feel like the biggest fool in the world for not noticing what was going on. How could I have missed this? Was I so blind, so naive, that I could not see the cracks forming? But now I am faced with a difficult question: how do I handle this moving forward? Am I being heartless by walking away from her while she battles this addiction? Or am I justified in feeling betrayed in putting my son first? I cannot shake the feeling that I have failed, not just as a husband but as a father. All I feel for her now is anger and resentment, but is that the right way to treat someone who is fighting their demons? Here is the thing: Sarah does not get the benefit of the doubt anymore. I cannot put my son at risk to help her. She has to face this and fight her way back on her own terms. After reading some of the comments from people who have been through similar situations, I cannot help but wonder if that letter was not entirely genuine. Maybe it was just a way for her to justify her actions or to manipulate the situation so she could continue spiraling without being held accountable. One of the hardest lessons I am trying to learn is this: not showing compassion is not the same thing as being vindictive. Letting someone fall does not mean you are kicking them when they are down. Sarah has put me in an impossible situation. I cannot risk my son's well-being just to help her. His trust in me has to come first. I am moving forward with the divorce, but I might reach out to the treatment facility she goes to and see if there is a way to offer support from a distance. Not as a husband, but as a human being who once loved her deeply. However, my son will always be my top priority. His safety and happiness come first, no matter what. On a brighter note, when I showed the letter to Tom, he practically wanted to throw a party. He said it is a straightforward admission of untreated addiction, which strengthens my case for full custody. I am holding on to that hope for Danny's sake. At least one good thing might come out of all this mess.